very comfortable calling himself a dreamer, and for good reason. He's been responsible for setting up in this country an amazing program for a group of Decile 1 students called I Have a Dream. I'll let him tell you more about how it actually works and explain the mechanics, but I have to declare an interest here that as one of the adult volunteers involved in the program, which actually came about as a result of a radio interview I conducted with him 2 years ago, I've seen the results for myself. We tend to associate dreamers as people with vacant looks in their eyes and an inability to deal with reality. But as you're about to discover, nothing could be further from the truth when it comes to Scott Gilmour. With 30 years experience in the IT sector, Scott is actively involved with some of New Zealand's biggest names in IT, including Nextbase, Right Hemisphere and Jade. He also serves on the advisory board for the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise Beachheads program. Please welcome our sixth speaker for today, dreamer Scott Gilmour.
Thanks, mate.
Around the world, I have a dream.
My name is Mosa. My dream is to be a judge.
We look at him now. He know more than the beginning of study school, and then we know stats from dreamers. Me and my husband, we very surprised. Some of the words he used, we can't believe for his age. We can't believe that. It just make me feel proud of him.
The year my son was starting school, he don't know what he's gonna be in the future. But when the dreamer come across and he had a dream, he want to be a judge.
When I first started, I had no goal at all. I was like one of those students who didn't have goals for their life. But when the Dreamer program came in, then I finally knew about setting goals for the future. When I finish high school, I want to go to law school, and then I want to become a lawyer first, and from there I want to become a judge.
Mosati is one of the star pupils of the I Have a Dream program and symbolises many of the qualities that Scott and Inlin are striving for.
The main thing is they're encouraging you and helping you set goals for the future.
Isn't that great? Mosa, one of our dreamers, a brilliant young kid. The start of the video there was 2003 when we started in Mount Roskill at Decile 1 Primary School, Wesley Primary, and then a year later, and the last video shot there was in 2 years ago when we graduated from intermediate school. Moss is now a very articulate young man of 15 years old, and he's well on his way to becoming a judge. So I want to talk to you today about New Zealand's education system and some of the facts about it that you may or may not be aware about, and then talk about the I Have a Dream program and why it's necessary. Some of you may be familiar with this data. PISA is the Program for International Student Achievement, and it's done on a number of countries around the world, primarily OECD, tests kids in science, mathematics and reading, and as you can see on that chart, New Zealand does very well. 5th in reading and in the top 10 across all of them. So you'd have to say that New Zealand is doing very well with education, right? Wrong. The problem is that New Zealand has a very long tail of educational underachievers. And I'm going to go and look at a few statistics now that show you what I mean by that. First off, hopefully you've heard about ASTL. It was actually a literacy, and there's a numeracy evaluation as well, developed here at the Auckland University by Professor John Hattie. And this chart tells us two disturbing things. You understand about the school decile ranking, from low socioeconomic neighbourhoods to very high socioeconomic neighbourhoods. And what we see is that the neighbourhood sort of wealth increases, then reading literacy increases as well across all ethnic groups. We also see that the Caucasian European ethnic group is a much higher performing than the Maori and Pacifica groups. What this chart doesn't tell us is that the bulk of your Maori and Pacifica populations are actually located in the lower decile schools. So we've got a double whammy there. And this is the outcome of that. NCEA Level 1, for the older ones in the audience, that's the old school cert, 15 years old, first sort of big national exam. And there's the outcomes. Maori and Pacifica students performing around about the 50th percentile for passing NCEA Level 1 versus Europeans up at 80% and Asians less well. And what those two facts tell us is that when we rearrange the PISA rankings to look at relative inequality of outcomes, New Zealand is the second worst country in the OECD for relative inequality of outcomes. And for those who want to understand that more, this is a fascinating document from UNICEF, the Innocenti report, and it's up on our website, as are all of the documents I'll refer to today. So what does that mean in practical terms? Well, this chart is a shocking one, frankly. It looks at the 4 ethnic groups on a proportional basis, first of the population as a whole, then of the prison population, and then of the university population in terms of kids doing bachelor level degrees. And so what you see is that, for instance, Māori is 15% of the total New Zealand population, 50% of our prison population, and about 10% of our university population. Similar dimensions for the Pacifica community. Now, that's a shock, and it's uncomfortable in terms of a fairness of society, but it's a bigger important reason for this important fact. These are the faces of the future. These are photos of our dreamers when we started, and demographically, by the year 2050, over 57% of kids in New Zealand will be Māori or Pacifica. That's only 40 years from now. Now, when you think of those educational outcomes, and you think of these ethnic groups that are suffering to that, are we really going to be able to become a knowledge economy? Are we going to move up the OECD and our productivity rankings? Who is going to look after us in our old age? These are troubling trends. So, I'm going to look now at 4 ways of looking at the causes of these disturbing educational outcomes. First off, most people would think of capital or income as a variable in those outcomes. The decile rankings of the schools showed it. But there's other dimensions of capital as well. And again, this paper's up on our website. Professor Edmund Gordon is a professor of education and psychology at Columbia University in the States, and he talks about multiple areas of capital that a family might have. So it's not just access to financial wealth or income, it's access to and control of these other resources. Educational, institutional, so people having experience with professions, higher education, human and health capital, all these things. Similarly, this is a wonderful study from the Educational Testing Service, again in the United States. They analysed 50 years of data, research on educational outcomes, and came up with 14 factors that are highly correlated with these adverse educational outcomes. 8 of the factors are before or beyond school, outside school, and 6 of them are in school. So things like birth weight, nutrition, television watching, parental availability, and so on, highly correlated with those adverse outcomes. And similarly in school, things like rigor of curriculum, teacher experience, and so on. Again, Professor Hattie, he did a study that was just publicised earlier this year, and he analysed a similar sort of range of educational research. He said the biggest in-school factor is the relationship of the child with the teacher. Well, one of our dreamers just a few weeks ago was reported to us as having a few behavioural problems in class. So Ant, who runs our program, went in and observed the classroom behaviour. Yes, it was bad, but as he dug deeper, he found that this English class, they were onto their 3rd teacher in 3 terms. So how can any child in that class form an ongoing and meaningful relationship with a teacher when they're turning over every term? This is another fascinating study from 2 researchers called Hart and Risley, and what they did is looked in depth over 3 years at 42 families in Kansas City and analysed the patterns of behaviour between the parents and the kids. And what they found is that professional parents, on average, are speaking over 2,000 words per hour to their children. Working class parents, 1,300 words per hour. Welfare mothers, 600 words per hour. So what does that mean? That at 4 years old, children and professionals have 50% larger vocabulary than working class parents, 2 times the vocabulary of welfare mothers. So these kids at 4 and 5, they're going to turn up for school ready to talk and interact with the teacher, able to read what's on the blackboard. That's why you get these outcomes. And then it's not just the quantity of words, it's the quality of words. Verbal encouragements versus reprimands. Working class parents, 6 to 1. Professional parents, 6 to 1. Working class parents, 2 to 1. And welfare mothers, 1 to 2. Now, the 4 before said parental availability and so on, and you might listen to radio or read the papers that says, it's the parents, right? Everybody's looking for a single problem, therefore we can have a single solution. Well, let me tell you about one of the mothers of one of our dreamers who a few years ago hadn't enrolled their child in school. we sort of went into the home to find out what the problem was, discovered that mum works the first job from 7 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon, and the second job from 5 till 10. So she's working 2 jobs just to put food on the table. When exactly in that schedule can she go to school to enrol the child, go to parent-teacher meetings and so on? And how stressed would she be when she gets home from those 2 jobs and has to interact with the child? This is a fantastic analysis that comes from Nick Tuatasi, who's one of the trustees of our charitable trust. And you may have heard of him. He was a policeman in Mount Roskill for a long time, started up a number of fantastic community programs. And he talked about the 4-legged stool of youth development: family, culture and community, education and employment, and peers and friends. If all those legs of the stool are solid and strong, the youth will be solid and strong. But if you take away any of those legs, or all of them, first to go typically is when dad leaves, the family breaks down. That quickly flows on to the culture and the community, which has an immediate impact on the education, which impacts the employment. And so all you've got left for that youth is the peers and the friends. And guess what? That's where the gangs step in. Out in Mount Roskill, where our program is, the local gang is called DMS. Pretty blunt marketing message: drugs, money, sex. Guess what? That's attractive to these kids because the gang steps in, provides the family, the employment, and the culture. So it's not a wonder that this happens. So we have the I Have a Dream program, and rather than me prattling on for another 5 minutes, I'm going to ask for the video to be run, which is John Campbell on Campbell Live, talking a bit about the program. Thanks.
3 years ago, Scott began to sponsor an entire year of children from a Decile 1 primary school in the Auckland suburb of Mount Roskill. He's helping them make it through school, and he's promised to pay for their tertiary education too, himself. Kerr Sylvester with a story of kindness and potential.
53 kids. Scott Gilmour knows them like they're his own.
Anuva's our biggest dreamer.
3 years on, the children on Scott's I Have a Dream program have moved from Wesley Primary to 11 different intermediate schools. But they still spend 2 afternoons a week at their brand new Dreamer Centre at Wesley Intermediate, paid for by Scott.
When I first met him, I had all these questions. Okay, I said, who's this white guy? Why does he want to do this for these brown kids? Because come on, there isn't one white kid here. Okay, there's all these Pacific Island Maori kids and refugee kiddies here. Why does this white guy want to do it for these kids for?
I guess I was lucky enough to have parents who, A, expected me to go to university, B, could have paid for it if they needed to, but they didn't need to back then because it was free, and C, gave me a lot of wonderful resources that many other families don't have. You know, going to libraries, going on trips, being part of Boy Scouts, all these things that you take advantage of and you just assume are there are in fact not universally spread.
These are nice photos.
Scott used to live in the United States. After returning to New Zealand with his family, he thought he'd start up a Dreamers program, a charity franchise that's been successful in America. He gives his time and a lot of money for one simple goal.
To help these kids stay in school, study hard, succeed and get off to university.
SANDWHICH. Free university education is the ultimate prize, and everything else leads to that goal. The children are given help with their homework and mentoring to improve their progress.
Okay, I'll practice your first 4 up to there.
I might get it wrong.
See how you're going. Ready?
They're taken on trips, educational and fun, and they all have computers at home.
The best thing here is coming and doing our homework.
Is it?
Homework and then second period games. That's like a DRT. CIS 3.
The numbers for these kids don't look good. Statistics show we can expect 3 out of this group of 53 to attend university. Scott thinks he can do better.
I would love to see all 53 of them get there. Realistically, I expect over 30 to get there. And when that happens, you're going to break the cycle of poverty in that family forever. And we're going to hopefully generate a whole new generation of leaders in the Pacific and African community.
Why just focus on 53? Why not spread the money around? Why not spread the money so that you're helping a whole school?
It's a good question. I think if you spread it too far, you'd end up with very little effect.
And the effect of the Dreamers program is already clear. Compared to previous years, this group of kids is better at reading, writing and maths. There are also fewer truancy problems.
He treats the kids just like his own. I mean, if they're doing good, he praises them. If they're doing wrong, he punishes them too. I think he's great. It's just like one of the family almost.
I get it back so much. There's a great quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that says, "No man can sincerely try to help another without thereby helping himself." And you know, what I get back from these kids when we go on camps and you see them react to the experiences they get, it's fantastic. And just to talk to the parents, to see the progress that's happening, it's a good feeling. So it's quite a selfish act, really.
We've got a good opportunity over here to use our time wisely.
And does that make you want to work hard?
Yes.
The unfortunate part of publicity like that, it tends to focus on me because, yeah, I wrote a few cheques. The reality is what makes our program successful is Ant, who you saw on there, and Lynn, the two staff people that work full-time on the program, and Andrew and the hundreds of other volunteers we have that give their time. It's vital. So if we can bring the PowerPoint back up, please. Eventually it'll come, and I'll tell you a bit more about the program. There we go. The I Have a Dream program, as you saw, is a franchise. It's been running over 25 years in America, 190 projects just like ours, and so there's three core principles behind it. We took the entire group of children, this Year 4 class from Wesley Primary School 7 years ago, not just the bright ones, not just the troubled ones. We made a 10 to 15-year commitment to them to get them through high school, and we'll pay for tertiary study if they want to go there, and we do whatever it takes. And it's not just negative interventions in terms of going to the family or the school or working with the police or SIFs, but a whole lot of positive interventions as well. Tutoring after school, long-term mentoring assignments with each of the children, exposure to university and different careers, community service, lots of trips to do cultural and social enrichment, and everything is done with the family's involvement as well. And why is it important? This slide is very important. Cost to society. Operating costs today in New Zealand to keep a kid in high school, about $6,000 a year, to keep them in university, about $13,000, or to send them to prison, $90,000 a year. Which do you think is a better way for us to spend our money? And the results of the I Have a Dream programs in the States, again summarised on our website, they get higher achievement in all of these things like graduation and university attendance and resilience, and they get fewer of these things like teenage pregnancy, substance abuse, gang involvement, and so on. So what? Why am I telling you this? Well, what we'd love you to do is volunteer. We always need some after-school tutors and so on, and lots of other great programs around town like Big Buddy, Project K, Mates, First Foundation would love to have you involved as well. If you want to sponsor a project, please come and talk to me. We're ready to roll this out to a number of other cities and got a number of schools that are anxious to roll it out. Or just spread the word. Talk to your workmates, talk to your church people, talk to your member of parliament. You know, how many people in New Zealand are aware that these educational outcomes are a fact and what that means over the next 40 years? So thanks very much for your attention, and look forward to further conversations.